Hi, it's Stephanie. Welcome to Ageless. I'm so glad you're here. Hey, everybody. I'm back, and it's so nice to have my friend Krista here. She is a very delightful lady, and you're going to enjoy her. Hey, Krista.
Hey Stephanie, how you doing?
I am great. Thanks for sharing with us today. Now, you're a woman of many talents. You are a singer. You direct plays and you write them, and you like to hike.
I do, yeah.
So, where is your last hiking adventure? Where did you take your last hiking adventure?
Oh, good question. Actually, we had some friends visiting us from Florida, and we took them over to Sweetwater State Park,
Okay.
which is a really great hike, but also it's where films like Hunger Games and some of the what is it? I don't know if it's Guardians, one of the like superhero movies, or several of the superhero movies were filmed there.
Yes.
So it's a neat place to take people. We really enjoyed it. And of course, being from Florida, they don't get to see that kind of foliage and um elevation or anything. So
Mhm.
they really loved it.
Okay. I think I saw a little bambino on the back of somebody's. Is
Yeah,
that
yeah. When
right?
we have two grandkids,
Okay.
and my husband, we got one of those hiker backpacks.
Uh-huh.
So we will on shorter hikes because these babies are a year old and they're not light. And we're not young. So he's figured like a mile total is about the max we can do on a hike with a baby. But
Okay.
they love, especially the little girl. We have a granddaughter and a grandson. Our little granddaughter Millie loves being in the backpack.
Okay, okay. Well, I'm going to have to back up just a second. You said
Okay.
you're not young. Remember, this is an ageless program.
You're right. You're right.
Okay, well, let's talk about some of the women in your life that have been inspiring to you and made an impact in your younger years, like when you were in high school,
Yeah.
college. Talk about some of them.
Yeah, well, I was really blessed. So I was part of a tiny, sweet little church in Winter Haven, Florida. Doesn't exist anymore, actually, but Grace Baptist Church, and small but mighty. And God put a lot of really godly women in there. I would say probably the top three. I was thinking about this the other day when you asked this question. My youth pastor's wife, Ginger.
Hmm.
They moved to Winter Haven when I was in seventh grade. She and Dave, her husband, were our youth leaders all through, seventh grade all the way to 12th grade.
Hmm.
And then after I came back, I went to 2 years of Bible college. After I came back from that, she gave me my first job. She was the director of a daycare. And so I worked for a year with her as my boss. And she was just the most joyful, godly woman. And I had the privilege of getting to see her just weeks before she died this last year. She had cancer
Mm.
and battled with it for over 2 years. It was extreme. And I saw her a couple different times in that journey. And even that last time I saw her, I was in the hospital. Somebody else was visiting with her. So I was hanging back, waiting for my turn.
Hmm.
And one of the nurses walked in and she looked at me and she says, "Do you know this lady?" And I was like, "Oh, yeah, we go way back." And she said, "Do you know the other nurses and I fight over who gets her room because everybody wants to be around Ginger?" And
Oh,
I thought, what an amazing testimony. This woman
certainly.
had, intense amount of pain, intense suffering. She was a shell by the end, what
Mm.
cancer does to the body.
Yes.
But she was still loving others and caring for them so much that the nurses in her hospital begged to be put on duty to be able to care for her because she was that life-giving. So she's like my number one. My number two is Mrs. Lofton. She was another youth leader's wife. She just always had her home open to us kids, to us
Mhm.
youth. I wouldn't even knock on her door. Like I would literally just drive over to her house without calling first, walk in the door, be like, "Hey, Miss Lofton, what's for dinner?" And she would
Like
feed
that.
me. She was just wonderful. Like she was really an example of just hospitality and kindness. I didn't have the greatest home life, and so being able to just be in that home where there were two parents who love each other and loved others was great. And then my third was an older woman named Mrs. Woolley. She was like the most energetic older lady I'd ever known, just loved Jesus so much and wanted everybody else to love him too. And I remember right after I graduated high school, my plan was to go to Bible college.
Okay.
But my best friend was like, Krista, what if we just got an apartment together and we went to community college, but like that, and not like in a bad way. We weren't looking to party or anything, but like let's have some independence and just go to college here. You don't need to go to Bible college all the way up in New York. And so I was like, oh, maybe I should do that. And so this one Sunday after church, I mean, I remember where I was sitting. It was one of those moments, I can
Okay.
still see it. Miss Woolley sat me down in the pew because it was old church. We had pews. And she said, Krista, I heard you're thinking about not going to Bible college. I'm going to tell you something right now. There's a few things I know for sure. And one of them is that God wants you to go to that school.
Okay.
And for me, I had so much respect for Mrs. Woolley. That's all it took. I went to my best friend. I was like, Julie, we can't move into an apartment together. I got to go to Bible college. Miss Woolley said so. That was the end of the discussion. So yeah, those are three ladies who had a significant impact on my life growing up.
Wow. That's awesome. Now, this this is just a little extra. Is
Okay.
this when you met Dave?
It is, yes. So, I mean, Bible college had a lot of benefits for me, but the most beneficial was it's where I met my husband.
Okay.
So, Miss Woolley was 100% right.
Yes, you would have missed that opportunity.
That's right. That's right.
Wow. Well, I know you are an educator and you just celebrated a high school graduation with students that you taught from around the country. Tell us about that graduation and why this graduation was special to you and different from all the ones that we've been accustomed to in this area and pretty much all over the country.
Yeah. All right. So when I first started teaching, I've always taught at private Christian schools. Started in
Mhm.
Tampa, taught there for several years, 8 years. Moved to California, taught there for 5 years, and then COVID happened, and our school didn't survive. And so the Lord opened up the opportunity for me to teach for an online Christian school where our classes are live on Zoom like this. So I've got a classroom full of students online. And that started 5 years ago with sixth through eighth grade, and we added a grade every year.
Mhm.
And so this year we had our first senior class, and that senior class had students not just from around the country, but around the world. So we have a missionary kid family in Peru. We have
Mhm.
a young man who plays semi-professional soccer in Portugal. And then we've got students from Nevada and New York and Tennessee, all over the place. And so they all came here to Georgia, to my church here, to celebrate their in-person graduation. And so for almost all of them, it was the first time they've met in person. But they've been together live. A lot of them have been there the whole 5 years. So
Mhm.
I've known them for 5 years. I've taught them English, and they've known each other, and they have and some of them have made trips to see each other through the years, but never all together like this.
That's
So,
wonderful.
and they're just a sweet group of kids, and they were so excited to see each other. And, the parents were thrilled to be able to meet. And so it was special. It's unique. I wasn't sure when I started this that I would like teaching online because I like being with kids. But I have really enjoyed it, and gotten to just love these kids. And so being able to see them in person and celebrate them, it was fantastic. It was a great day.
So, what piqued your curiosity or your interest in being an educator?
All right, good question. I mean, I really didn't think that was what I was going to do. Growing up, I did a lot of theater. I thought I was going to be an actress. That's the direction I was going.
You do have that personality and that flair.
You're right. Okay, thanks.
I know
So,
you.
yeah, yeah. I'm dramatic. But anyway, the Lord totally changed direction on my life when I was 16. But at that point, I didn't know what I was going to do or even how I was gifted, because the only thing I'd ever done was, I sang and I did theater, and that's what I was good at. And I wasn't good at anything else
Mhm.
that I knew of. But I was trusting the Lord. He asked me to just surrender my life to Him, and I did. And so, my junior year, I actually switched schools. So after I made that commitment to the Lord, I had been attending a performing arts high school,
Mhm.
studying theater because that's what I was going to do. And God made it really clear, like, this is not where you need to be. And so I transferred to the local public high school. And the
Mm.
public high school had a group that met for devotions before school every day. There were like 40 students who met for devotions before school every day. And the sponsor of that group, not long into me coming, said, Christy, you need to start giving devotions. And I was like, I don't do that. Like, I don't even know what you're talking about. But I started, and she really encouraged me. She was the first one to notice that I am a teacher. Like, I
Mm.
have a gift to be able to teach and communicate effectively. And I had no clue. I never had that opportunity or even the thought. My mom was a teacher, but
Okay.
I didn't want to be a teacher. That didn't look fun. That wasn't as exciting as being an actress. But anyway, I spent my last 2 years of high school giving devotions once a week, and I really realized how much I loved it.
Mhm.
And so I did, 2 years of Bible college, which was just focused on the Bible because I wanted to learn more about it. And then I started like at University of South Florida, and I still wasn't 100% sure, like, what do I want to do? But I remember sitting down with the advisor and saying, I don't know what I want to major in, but what degree has the least amount of math? So she said, so she's looking at the computer and she's like, well, English or history. And I was like, you know what? I like both of those, but I think I really like reading. Reading's always been something I've enjoyed. So let me major in English.
Mhm.
And as I started in those classes, once I got the prereqs out of the way and finished my last math class ever,
Uh-huh.
um, and I just got to go to college and read books and talk about them, I realized, like, I love this. I love I love the English language, but I really love literature. That was what I ended up like, my major was
Mhm.
British and American literature. And so, yeah. But being, a Christian and looking at the world from a Christian worldview, I was like, man, I feel like a lot of these professors at my college are missing out on some of like the deeper meanings in these works because they're refusing to see the worldview of the vast majority of the great authors,
Right. Right.
pre-20th century. So I was like, man, I wish I'd love to teach English and literature from a Christian perspective.
Mm.
And so after we had our kids and when our kids started school, God gave me the opportunity to teach at Christian schools. And so that's what I've been doing ever since. And I love it.
So, how have you seen yourself impacting the lives of these young people? What have you poured into them as a teacher and as a believer, whether it's public school or private?
I think probably more than anything, because I really struggled to figure out like where I'm gifted, and also because I had such great women like those ladies at my church and the sponsor of our, Christian group at school.
Hmm.
I've really looked to try to encourage the young women and young men, but the young women who've come through my classroom in the areas where they are gifted, and
Hmm.
also just help them understand it's okay if you're not great at English. It that doesn't define you. There's something else that you're good at, and not everybody knows right away.
Right.
I didn't know what I was supposed to do until I was, in my early 20s.
Hmm.
So, not everybody knows in high school. I also looked for opportunities to have like discipleship groups. So I would meet with some of the girls and we would go through, Bible studies together, book studies together, most of the time in groups, but sometimes one-on-one, with girls who were, really struggling or really needed it.
Hmm.
I also taught drama. So, the Lord kind of brought that back, which was neat. It was my second year of teaching in Tampa, my second year of teaching period. Um, and I started musical theater program at our school and was able to direct musicals, which I just love. And, that's another way to just encourage. One of the things I found was most of the students weren't wanting to be actors or actresses that were at my schools.
Okay.
But being involved in theater and performing in front of people is a really great opportunity to grow in
Mm,
a lot of ways. It develops confidence in
yes.
students.
Yes.
It teaches them skills that you need. I mean, you're just going to have to speak publicly at some level. And
Hmm.
if you have sung and danced in front of 200 people, then, giving a speech in front of 20 suddenly isn't nearly as difficult.
Right.
In fact, one of my favorite stories is I had a young girl who I taught public speaking as well for a couple years. She had to drop my public speaking class because she was getting like heart palpitations. She was just so nervous.
Oh.
And her senior year, her friends talked her into being in the musical. And she's like, I'm just going to be in the chorus. I'm not going to do anything crazy, but I'm going to be in the chorus. So she
Mhm.
did that. That really helped her. She went off to college and she is now working as a broadcast journalist on television.
What?
So this girl who, is scared to death of getting up in front of a class and speaking, is now speaking for a living. And, I had a very tiny part to play in her journey, but it is neat to see um, that, she had the opportunity to do that, to be in the little chorus. And I also just love exposing kids to the arts because we get way too focused on academics, I think, in school. And I'm a fan of academics, obviously, as an English teacher, but
Yes.
there's a lot of beauty in the world, and we should be able to enjoy that and appreciate it and recognize it. And so, one of the gifts that students come back to me and say, man, after having done performs in a musical, I want to go see the, professional ones now. And I really I think about what they're doing, like how they had to memorize all those lines and learn all those dances and do all of that. Um, and so, they are enjoying the arts in a way that, maybe they wouldn't have had they not had that experience. So
Hmm.
those
Hmm.
are some of the joys that I have.
Well, you and I, share those same the artsy things.
Yeah.
And it's fun and it's true. I think the arts causes a person to express.
Yes.
It frees you to think about other things. You're not always so stuffy and stiff. So I
Not
love
everything has
the
to be
arts.
practical.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's going to tell into your next area of expertise, and that's writing books. Now,
Yeah.
I have, I couldn't get one, but my daughter and I have read the one that I
Oh,
got
okay.
that I could get. So, would you tell us about your books, why you wrote them, and where we can possibly revamp and get them? Because I
Yeah.
want people to hear about you and know about you. You're a great writer, great person, but that's my selfish self speaking right now.
No, I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Um, yeah, so it's I guess it was 2010 when the Twilight series was really, really popular. And so I had a lot of parents from my Christian school asking me, like, is it okay for my daughters to read Twilight?
Mm,
And so I was like, I don't know, I haven't read it yet. So, I picked up the books, I read through them, and I was like, I see why girls love these books. Girls love these books because we all have within us this hunger to be loved and to be known
yes.
and to have a savior. And that's what Edward was in these books, right? He's immortal. He can give her eternal life. He loves her in ways that nobody else does and provides for her in ways that nobody else has. And so I was like, man, that longing that we have is a genuine, real longing, but
Mhm.
that's not going to be fulfilled in a guy. Um, and so I was like, I wish somebody would write books where that really pointed girls to Jesus. Like it can still have the romance in it, but
Right.
romance should be secondary to relationship
Yes.
with God. And I just felt like the Lord saying, well, why don't you write? those books. And I was like, I don't know if I can write a book. And so I went to my husband because we were both teaching, and I said, I think I want to write a book. Would you be okay watching the kids if I go to the library this summer in the mornings and see if I can do it? And so he's like, yeah, go for it. So I did. I took my laptop to the either public library or the local Panera. And
Because you have to have your coffee.
yes, I do. I wrote my first book, First Date is the name of it. It's loosely based on the book of Esther, but it's like a contemporary telling. And because I was always a big fan of Veggie Tales. So as I was thinking through, like, what do I want to write? Like, I love Veggie Tales. I think what they did was fabulous for kids.
Mhm.
Take these stories and make them fun,
Mhm.
and, connect them with the kids. So I was like, if I want to do anything, I want to be like Veggie Tales for teenagers, but, for teenagers. So with real people and not vegetables. So I wrote over the summer, and by the end of the summer, I finished the book. I looked for an agent. The Lord allowed me to get an agent.
Mhm.
The agent was able to connect me with a publisher, Thomas Nelson Publishers in Tennessee,
Mhm.
and they liked it enough to give me a 3-book contract. So I wrote 3 books for them, and then um, when I finished the 3rd book, that's when the dystopian series were really taken off, like were huge. The Hunger Game, I'm not, yeah, yeah, Hunger Games, Divergent, all of those. And so they said, hey, we'd like to have one, from a Christian worldview. Do you think you could write dystopian? And I was like, well, I don't know. But I was encouraged that they believed I could. And so, I took about 6 months to just read all of them that I could get my hands on just to see what other people were doing. And so I wrote a 3-book series for that. And then that door was shut. And I haven't written any more books since then, but I do write scripts for
Mhm.
churches
Mhm.
and use my gifts in other ways.
Yes, you're very, very talented.
Thank you.
You are. I mean, I'm stepping aside from our friendship, but you really are very talented and creative, and I love the energy that you bring to a script, the energy that you bring to the young people, as I've seen you direct. Just when you walk into a room, you're very energetic. You light up a room. So I thank you for lighting up my life and being my friend and sharing your life with all of us. How can we get the books? Are they still
Yeah.
available if you want
Yeah.
to share
They're
that
all
information?
on Amazon.
Okay.
So some of them are on like backstock sometimes. So I know I looked up one the other day and I was like, oh, I got to go to a different website to find it. But if you type in my name, Krista McGee, which I'm fine, give my full name, Krista McGee, and on Amazon, you should see those. You can also look at like christianbook.com or any online bookseller
Okay.
should have them.
Okay. She's
Yeah.
good, everybody. Go out and get her books. They're
All
good.
right. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. We talked about women in your life that inspired you and encouraged you when you were younger. Now I want to turn to a special lady in your life, and that's your grandmother. Would
Yes.
you tell us all about her, her walk with the Lord, how she impacted your life, and the legacy that she's left for you, your daughters, your granddaughter, and the other women, along with your sisters, your whole family?
Yeah. Yeah.
What
Yeah.
legacy did she leave for you guys?
All right. Yeah. No, this one is tougher because she did just pass away last year. But yeah, no, my both my grandparents had a significant effect on my life, but grandmother especially because I had her until I was almost 50. And so, not a lot of people get to have their grandmother for that long. But she grew up in rural Tennessee, very poor. Met my grandfather right after he came home from World War II, but he was still in the army. And so when they got married, I mean, she was an army wife. I mean, they moved, moved, and moved and moved. And she handled those moves so well. Love them. I mean, my mom was born in Japan. And yeah, this was 1954 Japan, so it wasn't like what it is now. They were still rebuilding, and it was, but like she loved it. She had great stories of living there. She learned to play golf. She was an excellent golfer. My
Really?
grandfather would always say she's better than he was. Like she would
Wow.
win, she would be in tournaments or whatever and would win in those. And so, very athletic. She played basketball in high school. I have a picture of her in her basketball uniform in high school.
Now that's awesome. I like that.
I got none of those athletic abilities, but anyway, so yeah, and then they lived in Paris for a while. They lived in DC. My grandfather worked in he worked in military intelligence when JFK was president.
Mm,
He knew all kinds of things. Grandmother tells a story about one time, granddaddy called her at home and said, I need you to go get Pam right now from school. I can't tell you what's going on, but I need you to get in the car, drive to your mom's in Tennessee. Don't stop except for gas.
wow.
That's all I can tell you right now. She found out later during the Bay of Pigs,
Hmm.
uh, so they were thinking there's the possibility that DC would get bombed and he wanted his family out of there.
Right.
And grandmother did. Like she just went. And I said, didn't you ask questions? She's like, no. She's like, granddaddy told me a long time ago, he doesn't want me knowing the answers to a lot of the questions that people have.
Mm.
Because if anybody were to ever take me, he wants me to have, you know, ignorance.
Yeah, yeah.
Because he had state secrets that he could never disclose.
Mm,
So they moved back after he retired from the army. They moved back to Tennessee and they lived there uh, 40 more years. And she was incredibly involved in her church. She was in the same church from 1967 when they moved back to McKenzie, Tennessee, until she moved here in 2022. And when her pastor came, and she moved here because her dementia had gotten to the point where it was affecting her health. She couldn't live in the facility where she was because it was an unlocked door assisted living facility. And
okay.
she had walked out the door, walked out to the street, said she was looking for my grandfather, who he's been dead 30 years. And so, anyway, we had to move her. She never wanted to leave McKenzie. But at that point, I was like, we have to move her. We're going to move her near me because my mom had passed away at that point. So I was her primary caretaker. And so, but her pastor, when he came to visit her. She was in the hospital because she was having some high blood pressure issues and things in Tennessee before we moved her here. He could barely speak. He was crying so hard. And he had been at the church for about 25 years. And he said, Krista, and he brought this orange Bible. He said, your grandmother, first time I ever met her, gave me this Bible,
Oh,
had my name printed on it, and that's who she was. And
mm,
he said, she would help anybody. I mean, my grandmother was the one who, if they needed to have, a shower, a bridal shower, a baby shower, she was the one that was helping behind the scenes. Like she wasn't an upfront person wanting attention. She was a servant who was behind the scenes getting stuff done. I mean, I remember when she was in her 80s and it was harder for her to get out and do host things like that.
mm.
She would go to the church and get a big box of the bulletins and she would take them home and she would fold
Okay.
hundreds of bulletins. That was her service when she was no longer able to serve there. She would bring food to anybody who was sick, anybody who had a new baby, anytime there was a need. She cared for my grandfather all through the end stages of his cancer. He never was he didn't have to go to the hospital, go to hospice. Grandmother took care of him. And then 2 years later, she did the same for her best friend,
Mm,
who also had cancer. And she was over there all the time caring for her when her husband wasn't able to. Um, and when my mom also had cancer in 2017, grandmother was 88. And she was there for the last 2 weeks of my mom's life,
mm,
just caring for her as much as she could. And we were there when my mom took her last breath, we were holding my mom's hands and singing hymns, and grandmother was right there, and the the way she was able to keep going. I look back and think, like, my grandmother lost everybody that she loved. She died at 95.
Mhm.
She lost her husband when she was in her late 60s. She lost her best friend, not long after that. She lost her mother, both her brothers,
Mhm.
and then she lost her only child.
Mhm.
And even after that, after all those losses, I never once saw her wallow in self-pity.
Mhm.
I stayed with her for a month after my grandfather died. It was between my first and second years of college. So I had that summer break. And, she, of course, had her moments where she would cry, but she just kept busy. She kept serving at church. She didn't stop going. She didn't stop looking for ways that she could help other people.
Mhm.
Um, and when, after my mom died, it was the same. I mean, she moved into the assisted living facility that summer because we knew, like, she just needed to be living on her own at home. Um, she didn't move in because she needed assistance, because she was still walking every day up until like her early 90s. Um, but she didn't allow what to me I think would be the most horrible, losing a child, grief that you could have. She didn't allow that to define her or to crush her.
Mhm.
She still had joy. She still had hope. She knew she would see all of these people again. And she wasn't going to spend the remaining years that God gave her mourning and grieving. Not that there weren't moments, because there absolutely were, but she wasn't going to be defined by that. And so, I was so just encouraged and challenged by that. Like, she's faced some of the hardest things. And even in her last year, so she got dementia the last 2, 3 years of her life.
Mhm.
Um, she was still so joyful. I mean, I remember she fell. We were at the ER several times those last couple years after we moved her to Georgia, just for different things. And um, she would thank the doctors and nurses after they came in. Even if they took her blood and it hurt, when they left, she would say, "Thank you. I appreciate your help." She was just a kind woman.
Mhm.
Even when she wasn't sure who I was, she was still kind. And, similar to Ginger, my pastor's wife, the ladies who worked at the memory care facility where she lived said, "We just love taking care of your grandmother. She's such a joy." Um, and so I appreciate the love that she lavished on me. And, I don't think it's a coincidence that the year that she passed away was the year I became a grandmother.
Mhm.
And so, I feel like I was given a phenomenal example of what that looks like. And I hope that I can be the example to my grandkids that my grandmother was to me.
Wow. Krista, you do exhibit a lot of your grandmother's characteristics. I mean, I did not meet your grandmother while she was here, but all of the things that you shared with me in our, when we're together, but
Yeah.
even today, there's so much more that I've heard. You are your grandmother.
Thank
She
you.
has placed so many seeds in you, and they are sprouting like crazy. They are
Thank
sprouting like crazy. Let's talk about your daughters. You have a wonderful relationship with them.
I
And
do. Yeah.
it it's such a blessing
Mhm.
to have relationships with your daughters
Yeah.
where you're not fighting, but you're actually taught your friends.
Mhm. Yeah.
There's that level of respect now and connection. And I love that. I have that with mine.
Mhm.
Um, as you see them as young women and young moms,
Mhm.
how are you taking what your grandmother instilled in you and pouring that onto them? They already have that faith walk, and I know they're doing a lot of different things in their churches, but you are a spearhead and they are watching you. What are you doing to continue that pouring of that legacy your grandmother left
And
for all?
really, yeah, I think a lot of it is, I mean, one of the reasons my grandmother and I were so close is we talked at least once a week, every week, as long as I can remember, my whole entire life.
Mhm.
And some weeks it was just, hey, here's what's going on, blah, blah, blah. Other weeks it was, more. Um, but I knew that line of communication was always open. And I also knew my grandmother was very selfless. And so
Mhm.
there were no guilt trips. There were no, why aren't you visiting me more? Why aren't you, and she also wasn't, um, trying to get in my business if I didn't want her in there, which I think is really good. She was just there and I knew she was there. And she waited for me to share what I needed to share. And so I've tried to do that with my daughters. Like I want to treat them respectfully as the adults that they are. They're not children in my home anymore, so I can't make demands on them. I shouldn't, nor should I try to tell them what to do. um, I need to wait until they ask, and they do. They'll ask my advice, or they'll share what's going on. And, my goal is, I just want to point them back to God's word. I believe that's where we find our answers to the troubles and our struggles that we're having in life. And um, so, we have coffee dates. We get together. We do a girls' weekend once a year, the three of us. Um, we have a text chain going all the time. Something I did never have with grandmother, but that's a fun, we FaceTime, all these things. It's just communication. I feel like it's not like the big momentous things. It's just the little things like, hey, I'm here. I'm here. I'm here. I'm thinking about you. I'm praying for you. I love you. You know, I just texted my one daughter having a little bit of a struggle right now, just with life. And I was reading a psalm today and I was like, man, this psalm, you need to read this psalm. I think it'll really encourage you. And so those are the kind of things
Mhm.
I try to do to maintain and develop those relationships.
And those three words that you just said, they're little. I love you means so much
Mhm.
when a person hears it. They
Yeah.
may not want to hear it, but it does something to their heart. It really does. It touches the heart. So that's cool. You're also impacting lives with other women. You are a small group leader at your church, and you get a chance to connect with women. Women have a hard time bonding with each other for some reason. How are you connecting with these women and encouraging them to say, "Hey, it's okay. You're in a safe place.
Yeah.
I want to connect with you. I want to help you. I want to walk with you." How do you
Right.
do that?
I mean, I think just being real is helpful. I know for me, when I look back on the women who impacted me, they were the women who were real, because I think part of the reason some of us feel very intimidated around other women is we feel like they're perfect. Like your life is great. You're not having any problems. You probably never fight with your husband, or, you know,
Mm-hmm.
eat too much cake, or, whatever it is. And I have all kinds of problems. And so I think just, being genuine, like, hey, yeah, like we're going through in our Sunday school class right now a study on forgiveness. And that has been something I've really struggled with. And so as we talk with, these young women, I'm able to share, like, here's where I have struggled in the past, and I have a hard time. I want to hang on to grudges. I feel like I'm entitled to it. And here's all the ways that has been destructive in my life. I don't want you to go down this road. And I see that when I am open with them and sharing the ways I have struggled, they're willing to be open in turn. It's when I try to act like I've got it all together that nobody's going to want to talk to me, because, how could I possibly understand
Mm-hmm.
what they're going through if I'm perfect? So,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Mm-hmm.
I try not to give the impression that I think I'm perfect, because I'm absolutely not.
Okay. So you served in, like I said, many churches. How did you recognize that lonely woman? Because there are lonely women in church. How did you find them, and what can we do as women to encourage those women to say, it's okay. I'm here.
That's a good question. I mean, honestly, to be honest, I'm not great at reaching out.
Okay.
I'm good at connecting when people reach out to me first, or like in our Sunday school class, they're coming. Um, but that is a weakness. I do like right now I'm meeting one-on-one with a young woman from our class. And the reason I'm doing that, I reached out to her because she is a new believer and just has a lot going on, and she shared a few things, and I just felt like the Lord touched my heart, like, hey, she could use
Mhm.
a godly older woman in her life.
Mhm.
And so I reached out to her and was like, hey, would you like to meet? We can meet up for coffee. We're reading and talking through the book of Philippians right now, and it has been really great. And then in the past, it's been similar. I remember there was one girl I discipled, a high school girl, and I just knew her home life wasn't great. She'd shared a little bit. And so, I reached out to her. Would you like to meet? Go through a Bible study together, talk, share. And that was a really sweet time too. So, but again, I'm not great at that. I can definitely improve in that area.
Well, I have to go back again and fix that one. You are, because you call me or text me every month. Are we
Oh.
meeting this week? Are we? so, so you do that. So you got it. You got it. You got it. All right. So, what is the value of connecting with just women without looking at their age or their socio-economic issues or background? That's the wrong word. Background is the correct word.
Mhm.
What what is the value, and what can you learn from someone who is maybe younger than you or older than you?
Mhm. Well, I mean, I think there's a biblical command, right? The older women should teach the younger women. That is something that we should be doing. And I know when I was younger, I had women who invested in me, and I was able to kind of pay forward what Mrs. Lofton did for me. With some of these women, but I also had other women. Like I had a woman right after I got married, Paula, she was a youth pastor's wife at my church. And I just remember asking her, like, Paula, I don't know how to be a wife. I'm really scared about this. Can you help me? And she let me come over to her home and have dinner with them once a week when Dave was working. And we talked, and it wasn't anything super formal or anything like that. But I didn't grow up in a family where we had meals together and where we talked and joked and had fun. And just to see like
Mm,
a healthy marriage, to watch that play out in real time was so helpful for me in helping me understand how do I create a family like this.
mhm.
Um, and again, it's not the big massive things. It's have food on the table and eat together.
Yes.
um, talk to the kids about their days, have inside jokes, have fun, play games, um, and that was very, very helpful in having that. And she was, 15 or so years ahead of me
Mhm.
in marriage and in life. And that was very helpful. And now I see myself in more of that role, and having these younger women and how can I help, but also just learning from them. And we always learn from others. Just because I am older and I have been, had more life, there's still so much. I see this young woman that I'm meeting with, there's just a gentleness to her that I really appreciate, and as in a hunger because she's a new believer. Like these verses I've read a million times. I'm like, yeah, that verse says, it's live as Christ, to die as gain. I've read that. I know that. I've seen it stitched on the pillows,
Yeah.
but this is the first time she's looking at it, and it's astonishing. And getting to view scripture through her eyes is
Mhm.
so precious. It's I love that. So, and just understanding different people's perspectives, different life stories. I mean, you and I, we have a lot in common, but a lot not in common. And I think I learned from both,
Yeah.
because even though we have a lot in common, we've handled different circumstances in different ways.
Yeah.
And then, we have different perspectives too. And so that's been really helpful. Like, oh, I hadn't thought about that. That's good. I need to think about that.
I get stuff from you too.
All right, thanks.
So we're almost done. This has been so much fun. I always have a good time with you. Anyway, how would you define the word ageless, and how would you define yourself as ageless?
That's a good question. Ageless. I mean, I think when I think of ageless, it's really more of a mindset. I am an age, right? I am 50. I mean, my mom used to go around until she died saying she's 39. And, we just laugh at her because, I mean, she doesn't look young for her age, but she doesn't look 39. Um, but, but she did live and act and dress and comport herself in a way that seemed much younger than that. And then on the other hand, I've known people who just seem like old people forever in the way that we, like stereotype. Young people are fun and energetic and wanting new adventures. Old people are cranky and just want to stay home and don't like to move. And so when I think of ageless, I think, I'm okay with saying I'm 50 because that's what I am. But I don't want to be an old woman. I don't know that I ever want to be an old woman in that way. I hope I'm not cranky. I hope I am joyful, even like my grandmother, even when I'm, if the Lord gives me that many years, or however many years he gives me, I want to be joyful in them. I want to be energetic. I want to be outside and continue hiking and playing with my grandkids and getting on the floor with them. I want to delight in God's word and enjoy time with my friends and look for ways that I can serve. Uh, Even if my body does slow down some, I don't want to allow that to dictate
Mhm,
what I'm doing.
mhm,
Um, so in that way, I feel like ageless is the goal.
mhm. You are an excellent cook, and so I have a cooking question for you.
Wait, I think you're looking at the wrong questions.
I have had some of your food. If you were a spice, which one would you be? And how would you use that spice to draw women to Christ and to encourage them and just cause them to want to live vibrantly?
Hmm. Right, man.
Hmm.
Um, I don't know. The only one the one that's coming to mind right now that I use all the time is there's this one called the blend, and it has salt and pepper and garlic,
Huh.
and you can put it in anything, and it makes it taste better. So I put it in like bland chicken and rice, and then it's got like some kick to it. It's not overwhelming, but it makes it better. I've been trying to eat more fish, which I don't like, but if I put the blend on it, it's I can, force it down. It doesn't taste so bad because I focus on the blend. So I guess that's what I would want to be, like the blend. When life isn't going great, when things seem bland or when things seem awful, I would like to be somebody who sprinkles flavor so that it's more enjoyable. You can handle it better. People enjoy being around. Like she's going to make things better. It's going to make things more palatable.
You're amazing. I just love you so much. And I want
I
to
love you
thank you for just taking the time today to share your life, your story, your energy,
too.
your laughter. You're just a blessing to me as a friend. And I am sure you have been a great encouragement to a lot of women today. So as we end, is there anything you'd like to leave with the ladies to encourage them?
Good question. Really, my number one piece of advice for anybody is just to stay in close relationship with the Lord, stay in his word, stay in prayer, stay in fellowship with other believers. That's what's going to get you through. That's the psalm I was reading today. Thou, O Lord, are a shield about me. my glory and the lifter of my head. And David wrote that psalm when he was running from a man who was trying to kill him. So, he wasn't sitting in his cushy palace, being fed grapes by beautiful women. And yet he was still able to say, God, you're my shield. You're my protector. You're lifting my head, reminding me of all the good gifts that you have given me and who you are. So remembering that and being in a relationship with a God who loves you so much, that is the greatest piece of advice I could give.
This was fun. And I thank you so much, Krista. You're a joy.
You're welcome.
Hey, my friend. Thanks for joining me today on Ageless and for being an amazing part of this journey. Don't forget, you have been fearfully and wonderfully made. Go out today and live this life vibrantly. Until next time, bye for now.